Well, let's take you live now to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena, standing by in Sharm El-Sheikh with Kopano Moraka, who's a 25-year-old international relations honours graduate from Pretoria, who is attending this year's United Nations Climate Framework Convention on Climate Change as a youth delegate with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. Sophie, good evening.
Good evening, Iman. Yes, indeed, we are still here at the South African Pavilion, but you have many other countries here with exhibitions and currently different sessions by different countries based on their interest. As you pointed out, South Africa has got a huge delegation. You heard earlier on from the members of parliament, people who are responsible for making laws in the country. For implementation, you need legislation so that you can enforce those implementation and hold politicians accountable. But I think for me what is important is the young people, the youth on the continent. What are they saying and what do they want? What are their views in terms of issues related to climate change? And South Africa has been able to bring young people here to come and represent young people, not only in South Africa, but across the continent. Good morning, good afternoon, Kopano. We've been here for quite a long time. I've even forgotten that it's in the afternoon. Yes, young people, the youth, you are working hard. I saw you earlier on with your peers here looking at presentations. Tomorrow, a big day, the discussions. Can you briefly tell us why did you see an importance of this summit, but also your views in terms of what young people expect from this COP27, the implementation, not just talking heads?
I think why I saw this as important is because I wanted to offer a youth perspective to the negotiation spaces, and a lot of the young people don't have the opportunity to be able to walk into such, spaces and be able to enter the rooms that I've entered. So I wanted to offer that voice, and I think it's time that we as youth feel like we wanted to implement, and we want tangible change from various parties, various country parties, and this is something that we want to see because we have got new solutions to the climate crisis that's happening now, and especially because the climate crisis not only it affects everyone, but women and children and youth are the most the group that bears the brunt of this crisis.
Tomorrow, the negotiations will start. Countries are pushing for different issues. In terms of your viewpoint, what do you think is critical that needs to be addressed or must be high on the agenda during the deliberations?
I have been in the ACE negotiations, which is the Action for Climate Empowerment, and I think the one thing that stood out for me was basically having climate education be the one thing that young people should be, the support that young people should be getting. On top of that is the loss and damage issue, and countries taking accountability in paying the finances that I needed for developing countries. I've been under the mentorship of a DFFE delegate, Pemi, and through that we have basically seen the processes of what capacity building can do for young people in terms of having young people within the policy space and to be able to implement the SDGs, the SDG goals, and as well as the country's NDCs, to be able to have a strong point within the climate action discourse.
When you look at discussions at times, they revolve around politicians just fighting about their own interests. Do you think your voice will be heard?
I think to some extent, in a personal capacity, to some extent, it will be heard because it's inevitable that the transition between the youth that we have now and the politicians that we've got now is what is this? The transition between, that power transition is bound to happen one way or another. And what better way to do that what better way to do that than attending COP and, you know, being exposed to such an experience, to be able to say that, hey, this is the next step that I want to take, and what better way to learn from you as a person, for example, in politics and in power. So I think to a certain extent, yes, our voices will be heard. And we have, I think, in South Africa alone, the youth is made up of 30% of our population. So it's inevitable. It's an inevitable change that's going to happen, yes.
That was Kopano Moraka speaking to us here. But tomorrow, the Minister of Environmental Affairs will join her counterparts from the different parts of the continent, where they will be trying to map up a position for Africa. Back to you, Iman.
Thank you very much, Sophie and Kopano. Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor, just giving us some of the voices that are coming out and gaining some volume and traction there at the COP27 discussions in Sharm El-Sheikh in Egypt.